Hi everyone, welcome to Baatein. I'm Bursary and I'll be your host for today. And today we have with us Akhila Krishnan, a visual artist and an alumnus from my college. I think there's a network lag. Yeah, we're back. Okay, let's go. So Akhila, how have you been spending your quarantine? How has it been?
It's been better than India. I think the rules here are a little more flexible. Like you've been allowed to step out for walks or exercise, and you can go to the grocery store once a day. I've obviously been on calls to my family in
Right.
India. But yeah, I've also been really busy with work. I actually updated my website after 10 years during lockdown.
Nice. So, did you have any kind of like a creative block during the quarantine? This was one of the questions we got for you.
Yeah, definitely. I think during the period, it's you just take it a day at a time. I think everybody's dealing with so many stresses, especially if you're a freelancer. You're worried about, making rent, having enough work, and you're also worried about family.
Yes.
And even if you live in a place where there aren't many restrictions, there are still restrictions, and you know, you have to remember to take that many more things when you leave the house right now, right?
Yes.
Mask, sanitizer. You get fined like a huge amount of money here. You
Huh.
um, don't wear a mask on public transportation, for example. So I think it's been difficult to be creative. Like, I thought I would finish my 100 Days of Clouds project during
Yeah.
lockdown, and I haven't. I started and then I stopped, and I haven't been able to pick it up again.
I love your project. That one especially. Yeah. So, what field within design do you primarily work in now? And could you tell us a little bit about it?
This is a really tricky question. So when I was in NID, I did film and video for the undergrad in the undergrad course,
Okay.
and I worked in India for a year. I actually worked in Delhi. I was teaching there
Yeah.
for about 2 years,
Okay.
and then I moved to London to do my MA, but actually didn't specialize in my MA. I chose to do visual communication in my MA,
Hmm.
and then since then. One part of my practice is very clearly in this field called projection design for live performance, which is why
Okay.
I'm based in London and I work from here. But I still work in like comics, graphic narrative. I still do a little bit of work in moving image, both for live action as well as animation.
Okay.
I've recently started doing a lot of work in scribing and live drawing during like meetings and things like that. So I did a lot of work for the mayor's office this year, and that's going to continue into
Wow.
next year.
Okay.
So I
Wow.
kind of I work across a lot of different mediums. People find it really confusing, actually.
Okay. But what about projection design? What is that and why? Is that already introduced in India? Is it there?
Not
No.
really. There's
Okay.
some up in music festivals. So, live visuals that accompany like DJ performances in like
Yes.
concerts and festivals. I think there's a company called Wolves Visuals that does a lot of work in that area in India.
Hmm.
It's a totally new field. In fact, it's only really being taught as a discipline in drama schools right now. The courses have only started 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
Um, so it's called projection design live experience, and that means taking anything live action or animation and putting it into a space, a
Okay.
three-dimensional space,
Right.
and to an environment where audiences can experience it live. So it
Okay.
covers theater, opera, concerts, installation, exhibition, VR, projection
So
map.
it so
It
it,
covers
it,
all
it
these formats.
involves everything, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So when you say you're working with projection design, it's set design as well as the visuals, as well as the sound and everything.
I mean, I'm in charge of the visuals. I usually collaborate with a set designer or a sound designer.
Okay.
Each area is quite specialized, but yeah, it's basically working in a non-screen based way,
Okay.
but using moving image.
That's interesting.
Super niche.
Huh.
I had to go and find like super niche thing to work in.
Do you think it's going to make it big in India, that whole discipline?
I think it's starting to. It'll probably take another 5-10 years to go really big in India. There are like costs associated with it, in
Okay.
terms of technology and infrastructure. For
Hmm.
example, even in the UK, um, when I work in theater here, not many venues can support the work I do, even in the UK. So like
Okay.
smaller regional venues don't have like a rigging bar for projectors. They don't have projectors. They don't have media servers, and so you have to hire that in. So you have to hire a company you can hire it in from. So
Lot
in
of
India,
work.
like, we don't even have. There are not that many hire companies. There's definitely no infrastructure. I mean, we have a kind of street theater sort of history in India. So adding all of these dimensions of technology, like the building has to, whatever venue it's in has to be able to support it. So that's a big cost. And I would have said maybe 5 or 8 years, but I think it's looking with COVID, it's probably looking like 5 to 10 years, just because of lots of organizations losing money and not being able to afford things right now.
Okay. Okay. Question from the audience. So you said you work with the visuals within projection design.
Yeah.
What what is the process behind the visuals itself? Like, does it work like a storyboard, or is it collaborative? How exactly does that happen?
I think it depends from show to show, so there are no hard
Okay.
and fast rules.
Okay.
If you work in theater, then the thing that everybody works through is the script. That's the core. But actually, if you work opera or anything music based,
Hmm.
the score, or like the written notation music, is the thing that everybody works from.
Okay.
Because so all these shows have somebody calling them live on the night, because with live performance, you can't have the same duration or the exact same thing every night. So there's actually like a live putting the show together across all the departments every night. And that role is called a deputy stage manager, both for theater and opera. It's somebody who will call the show, say, this person goes on here, this person goes on here, you enter stage here, sound comes on here, lighting comes on here. So every show that you ever see live is called live, and it's different, slightly different every night.
Okay.
So the person calling the show for theater calls it from the script, and opera and music, you have to give a bar number and a
Mm-hmm.
page number. So that's how you put in cues. So as a designer, you have to make a cue sheet. So depending on the timeline of the collaborators you have, like the level of collaboration is different. A lot of the shows I've worked on have had very short turnarounds, so between 6 to 8 weeks. So I just worked at the Opera House last week,
Okay.
and we put that show together from start to finish. I worked on it for 3 weeks, and that was crazy because usually operas are like 2 years in the making.
What? Okay,
um,
that's crazy.
yeah, so we did it was chamber opera, so like just 1 hour long, so shorter than normal, but it was still really intense, and there was a lot of archive and stuff that had to be kind of cleared, and it was very, very tricky.
Nice. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your Opera House project, The Life of Dawn?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna update it completely on the website tomorrow, but the project was
Okay.
called The Night of Dawn. It was written by a female composer called Hannah Kendall, who's from Guyana. and it tells the story of Martin Carter, who was a Guyanese activist and poet.
Okay.
And it sort of fictionalizes a moment in his life where in the 1950s, the British imprisoned him and some of his colleagues from his party, the PPP, in prison, and he went on a hunger strike. And so it sort of uses this real life event as the basis for, creating a semi-fictional piece of work where the opera is with him over like one night in the set. Already, I think, midway into his hunger strike. So he hasn't eaten for like, I think, more than a few days. So he starts to kind of, and it was quite a big thing because it's one of the first major works by a Black female composer that was presented on the Royal Opera House main stage. It's sung by a Black tenor called Peter Braithwaite, and also conducted by a Black conductor. So it was kind of it was a really important project to be involved in, and I really like using nonfiction, and I like working with nonfiction in my practice, both in comics as well as in moving image. So it was a really great opportunity to be involved in the project, and we were trying to do some really technical things, like I don't know, a lot of you know what chroma keying is. So we had a live camera on the performer, and then we lit him, and we kind of sent a whole bunch of visuals that you could see inside him. So his body, almost like his silhouette, became a kind of like window through which we could see the landscape of the country, and then outside we kind of put colors and things like that. So it was quite a big thing to do in the timeline.
Nice. Also, quick question from what you just said: why the affinity towards nonfiction within all your work?
I think that's very much, I guess, connected to NID, that I did film and video there, and I really enjoyed the documentary project. And I do think life is stranger than fiction. So I suppose, I guess I'm always drawn to that idea of work. And I think also being an immigrant, you kind of reflect a lot on lived experience and history and identity and politics. So those are all kind of really important themes in my practice.
Okay. So we have two questions for you. Can you tell us about your contribution to the Bystander Anthology? Like what did you work on for the graphic project? I think this was part of the Kadak Collective, right?
Yeah, so I've been a part of the Kadak Collective since 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So apart from my work in production, I also make comics and draw, and I write and draw all my work. The Bystander Anthology actually started with the crazy idea that I had when I went freelance from my job. And I just thought that Kadak had been doing a lot of really good work for a long time, but we were on, I mean, all the commissions we applied for, I mean, they didn't, they weren't set up to pay enough money for the time that we needed to do the work. And also we were unable to kind of widen the group, or like the platform that we wanted to create with Kadak through those commissions, because we didn't want to ask people to make work for little to no money. And people kept really liked our work. They kept asking us what we would do, and they wanted to support it. So I thought that we should ask our community for support to create this project. So we came up with this. We were just like, let's go big or go home. So we came up with this sort of crazy idea, contacted like about 50 creators from all over the world. So we have 52 creators across 13 countries who've made work for the anthology. And it's been like, I mean, we're about a year into, we launched the project on Kickstarter in June 2019, and we're a year into the Kickstarter process. But I've been working on the project for about 2 years now.
Okay.
So we did a lot of work to get it set up before we launched on Kickstarter. And we kind of wanted to do something quite ambitious. So a web and a print anthology, because we're interested in digital publishing and what it can bring to that medium. And yeah, we were very lucky to be supported and fully funded. It was that campaigning period was one of the most stressful periods of my life. And right now we had a couple of delays in the sort of creation of the anthology, just because of the number of collaborators we had across different countries who were each sort of facing different kind of political changes in their country right after we were funded. So we got all the work in and then put together the anthology, and then basically COVID happened. So we've been kind of in, I guess, like flight mode since March, because the work is ready and everybody wants to see it, but our printer has been shut, and we've been trying to work with him to kind of reopen in a safe way, because we're going to ship all over the world, so we don't really want to effectively spread COVID through shipping the anthology all over the world.
Yes.
And also Bombay's been in lockdown, and that's our printing center really. So the printers has reopened, but at first they were only allowed to do printing for like medical purposes.
Okay.
So that changed about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So we were able to get our final proofs in hand and then do a final round of corrections. And we're just sort of in the midst of starting printing process, because it's quite complicated with COVID, because we're printing everything in Bombay, but then we have 3 shipping centers, actually 4, one in Bombay, one in Bangalore, one in London, where I'm based, and then one in St. Louis in the US.
Okay.
And so originally the plan was because we could have taken all of the books from the printing press, sent it to our center in Bombay, which is in somebody's house, and then couriered it from there.
Okay.
But now we're trying to eliminate as much travel as we can. So we're trying to see if we can get the courier to come to the printers. So we're working with the printer to see how much we can pack on site in his printing press and then ship it all over the world. We'd originally budgeted for, to save money, we'd budgeted for shipping all the rewards and the book together. So we've had the reward print, but we're not budgetarily set up to send all the lower tier rewards out independent of the book. So we're kind of, we have to wait till the book is finished to ship everything out and start all the shipping together. And then with COVID, like the number of checks on international shipping has gone up massively. So we're kind of at the end stages of the project, but it's taken longer than we thought. And a lot of the backers are first-time backers on Kickstarter. So there's been a lot of work that we're doing individually with people emailing us, and we're all trying at the same time to make a living and, trying to keep working through COVID. So it's been a big juggling act. And I think each one of us on the editorial team also had like things in our own personal lives that we're dealing with. Some of us are from family. So it's been a very kind of up and down process, but we're almost there. We're almost at the end.
Manami, I hope that answered your question. Okay, we have another question. How much of the on-set art, direction or production or improvisation is possible with visuals booked by, visuals, I can't read this. Visuals backed by technology, I think.
I guess it's a question like, how much creative control do I have over my work when I'm part of a team where we're trying to deliver the world of a show? I think quite a lot. It really depends on your relationship with the director of the show, who ultimately, it is set up that they make the call. And I think that balance is quite tricky when you train, like I did, to be director of film. And then when you work in theater, opera, you have another director above you. So you can kind of understand their decisions, but also you want to push for your own medium. But I've been lucky that most, if not all, the projects I've done really satisfying. I feel like I've been able to suggest a kind of visual language that, people have taken on board and that they like.
Right.
I realized
So
I realized I didn't
is
talk
it
about the Baatein Anthology, but maybe we'll come back to that later.
okay? No, but I think what he was. I mean, I have a question.
Yeah.
So is it easier to improvise on something that's done visually, as in like digitally, versus something that's an actual set, physical set? So which carries like more of a you can still work on this, that kind of a
I
deal.
mean, the reason why projection for live performance is a niche industry is that it's really hard to work in. Because I always say it's like working with moving image in a live context is like fitting a square peg into a round hole. The medium is not really made for the way live performance works, which is like changing it, improvising with it, as you rehearse. We can't change that quickly, right? You can't like remake a piece of content like that.
Right. Huh.
So
It's
you
not
have,
improv.
yeah, it's not like dance or performance, right? You can't just say, okay, I'm not going to walk this way, I'll walk that way, and then you do it like immediately, right?
Yeah, you can't do
So
that.
it's about working in live performance is a lot about anticipation. There's a high level of risk involved, and you kind of have to do your homework and make sure you've done all the preparation you need to and bring everything you need to site, so that if something doesn't work, you can swap it out for something else, and once it's cut, you don't have anything else to offer. So it's a lot about anticipation, and I always say it's like you need to make all your own lights and bring them to the venue, and then you're just swapping all the lights out. But making your own lights is really hard, right? You have to
Yes.
anticipate every eventuality and think the whole show through in a very different way. And there's also like a lot
Makes
of education
sense.
to do to other collaborators, because video and live performance is a very new discipline. So there's a
Yes.
lot of like making people understand that this is possible and this is not in this time frame, in this budget with
Yes.
constraints.
Yes, I think that answers my question.
Okay.
We have another. What are your favorite things about the London art scene?
Oh wow. I mean, pre-COVID, some of my favorite things about the London art scene were the fact that like permanent collections and all the museums are free, so you can go and like see all of them without paying any money. I also I definitely shift in the kind of work I used to go and see. So I used to see a lot of performance work with projection in it, because that's a field that I work in. And the fact that you have big venues like the National Theatre or like Barbican, or so many of the theatres in London that can host touring companies from other countries, and the best of the best come to London. That was really exciting. And also just just feeling like you're in the center of like a venue for new work. That also felt exciting.
Okay. So far, since you worked in like a lot of areas within visual art and design, what would you say is really close to your heart, and do you have a particular project?
I mean, no, so I have a very different approach to like mediums and making work, which is probably explains like the range of mediums I work in. I'm interested in storytelling, and I just pick different mediums to do that in. That's how I think of my work. So it's not surprising to me that I move from like comic making to projection design. Like the way I work in each of these fields is the
So
same.
It's more like what you want to do than how you want to do it. How
Yeah,
that's just like one of the options, right?
yeah.
That's interesting because a lot of people just this is the kind of work I want to do, you know. Yes, you were going to tell us a little more about the bystanders anthology. You
Yeah,
could
so
do
apart
that.
from being, so I'm editor and project producer on the anthology. But I also have written and drawn my own piece. It's one of the longest comics I've made. It's about 8 pages, and it's called Undersong, and
Okay.
it's about migration and sound and voice and language. And it's this idea about how when you become an immigrant and you live away from home for many years, how the way you, and it's not about that cliche about how your accent changes, stuff like that, but it's about how you hear things differently, and you become sensitive to different sounds, and something like a familiar voice from home might sound harsh because you're so used to people speaking in a different rhythm and a different
Yes.
cadence.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting because it's a drawn piece about
Hmm.
sound, like
Okay.
that's what it's about. So it's kind of interesting because again there's that thing, that push and pull with medium. What is the, shouldn't I make work about sound in a sonic medium, but I'm making work about sound in a visual medium.
Hmm. Another question for you about your project. How do you manage experiential live performances on a fixed size stage? I think this is regarding projection design.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand, how do you manage, like, I'm not really sure what that means. um, like,
Yeah,
what's the working
I'm not
process?
sure either. It Maya, if you're still here, could you elaborate on your question, please? Okay, we can wait for them. In the meanwhile, I mean, I've seen both your Instagram page and your website, and they both have very different styles somehow. Yeah, how do you manage that?
I mean, it's probably like not design, but I think so. I was working at a company in London for a long time before I went freelance 2 years ago. So, I mean, for various kind of copyright reasons, I never post my projection design work on my Instagram because of that, because the
Okay.
company wanted to be able to post about the projects.
Hmm.
Um, so this is why, like, when I started my Instagram, it has been running longer than my website because I did my website this summer.
Okay.
I used to primarily use my Instagram as a place to really show my drawing work and my comic work. So I think the plan, like from this year on, is to bring the Instagram more in line with the website and kind of showcase the range of work that I do. Because now I have a lot of design projects that I've done on my own, and
Okay.
the copyright around images, and because I shoot all of the shows and I document them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we got a follow up about that. Okay. Ragamala miniatures do that. Sound and visuals. Okay, wait. Oh, I think you were talking about how you work within the bystanders anthology, how you work with sound and not the sonic form but the visual form. I think that's supposed to be it.
Okay.
Also, the other question, I think they mean experiential live performances on a fixed size stage. I guess how do you work again around constraints? Whether
I mean, there are always constraints in life.
maybe it depends on the type of project.
Yeah, I mean, you're always working within the structure of the set design and where you rig the projector, which is like
Right.
always right place with the lighting designer, hanging lights in the same rig. And then if the show is touring, there are a whole bunch of other constraints as well. So it's sort of like really designing in the like a very difficult structure, and you try to design in such a way that you have the maximum number of options going into the final stretch of the project. And also, like, often with set design, you have very specific surfaces that you know you need to map with content, and so that sets in place the structure for the show.
Okay, I want to do similar work like you. How do I do it? Okay.
I guess where are you based? In India, presumably.
I don't know.
I mean,
I think they're in design school because
they're in design school. I mean, I feel like the world is changing a lot now. You know, when I started my career, like as recently as 2012, like I didn't even have a smartphone. This is my first Instagram live. You know, the internet wasn't a place to share tutorials. You know, like when I started studying, we were on deep tapes. You know, like there's no SD cards, and so I've like seen that change. And I've had to change my practice. In the I graduated in 2006 from NLP. So it's been 14 years, and it's like a totally different landscape. So I think if you want to work in projection for live experience, I mean, I don't know. I think in India, definitely the field to get into it is, live visuals and music, and you're working on, and I can sort of name a whole bunch of software that you should look up, and all of the tutorials are online now, which is amazing. It's kind of difficult I mean, I do feel like I learned a lot on the job, which is, I mean, I feel really sad saying that, like, I had to be here because projection design is so expensive, right? Like, when you start out as a freelancer, often you need to work with a company that has access to equipment and is able to afford budgets to like better technology. So I do think like trying to find a company that you can work at is a good idea, but then you have to be strategic about what you bring to them, right? You have to like do a lot of training in like maybe like either animation or like programming or something to be able to go to them and say, I can bring these special skills to you, and then basically you make yourself a generalist by working with them. I mean, I'm teaching at RADA right now in London, and this is a question that we're debating there as well, because they're a technical, I mean, they're an acting and a technical theatre school, and I'm teaching on the video design department. In London, we have this question of how can we teach projection design in a way that's meaningful. All these questions around access and kit, and how expensive some of the gear. But I mean, I think there are some softwares that are very inexpensive that are like QLab or Figure 8. Of course, like all Adobe software and things like that. And there are now like cheaper versions of the Adobe software, like something I know that I'm sort of looking into, which has like a cheaper version of Photoshop, and it's non-subscription based, and you can buy it. So I think you can start looking, and I'm trying here to get like the industry here to be better about talking about and sharing their work and their processes, because it's still like quite a hidden industry. We do a lot of really cool work that's very technical, but we don't share it like animation or moving image or motion graphics share their work at conferences. So I think hopefully in another year, a lot of this will become more open and more accessible. And I think I always follow people I like on Instagram, and I'm hoping to kind of talk more about my working process on Instagram. So yeah, I think that's how because so every project is so bespoke, right? The solutions you design for it are so particular to that project. So it's hard to talk about work in a generalistic way. You kind of have to use projects as examples, and you have to be like, this is what I learned in this project, this is what I learned in this project, this is what I did. This is the media server we use. We had 4 projectors here. We had 1 projector here. We had,
very specific.
56 projectors here.
Okay. Next question. Okay, you do a lot of different things, but do you have any other hobbies which you sort of try to inculcate within your work?
I mean, yeah, I do feel, and I mean, this is the advice I give to everybody, like, don't be like me, like, don't work. I'll spend a decade working and I'm tired. Do a lot of, the thing that I like about the weather is, like walking and hiking. So I'm try to be outdoors as much as I can, as much as the weather allows. And I'm on my feet a lot, and I kind of walk a lot. And that's something, it's quite easy to access outdoor space here. As compared to India, it's quite safe. You can do it on your own. You don't need to be in a group, which feels quite revolutionary, right? Like you're a woman and you can just go walking in the countryside and go on a 10-kilometer hike on your own. That's fine. And,
I'd like to do that.
there's like GPS everywhere. You can get an app. Everything is marked out. I sometimes go on weekends out of London with friends. So,
Wow.
yeah, and I hiked to Machu Picchu 2 years ago. That was one of the hardest things I did. 120 kilometers in 5 days or something. It's hard.
Wow. Envious.
Yeah.
Like you just mentioned, you've been working for like a decade and you're tired. How do you achieve that work-life balance, or do you not need one?
Oh, I'm always striving for one. I wish I had a better work-life balance. I mean, the tricky thing for me is because I work across so many different areas. I'm open constantly on my computer, and Safari has the email for my production work. Firefox has the email for the anthology, and then Chrome has like my UK email and my India email. So I'm constantly jumping between the 3, and sometimes it's kind of like brain melting. I think because a lot of my projects are still shifting and moving because of COVID. I'm hoping that once they either sadly either get cancelled or they get locked in dates for 2021, I think I'll be able to kind of navigate a bit more. But right now I just constantly feel like juggling way too many, not even balls, like plates, and they're just like all gonna and
They're all made of glass.
they're all made of like something sharp and breakable.
Okay. Let's go to the next question. Can you tell us about any one person, object, or incident that has inspired you?
Oh wow.
That's very generic, but
Oh wow.
inspired you how?
I guess
No, that is the question.
Inspired my work?
I'm guessing it is your work.
I suppose. I mean, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, I've been working a lot, but I feel like sometimes I just need to stop and think back over like a lot of the amazing things that I've done. I've worked at the Metropolitan Opera Center. I've like wandered around the stage there. I was in the same building as Michael Haneke, the director, when I worked on an opera in Madrid. I've worked on Philip Glass operas, and I've sort of been in the same room as him. I think he's amazing. I always say this to make people laugh. I've had like Tom Hiddleston come to the opening night of one of the shows that I've done. Worked with Ariane Phillips, who does costume design for Madonna. I designed the invite for the Met Gala. Like, That's kind of a lot. I mean, that's just some of the things that I've done in the last 10 years.
Wow.
So it kind of feel I haven't stopped to really think about it. I guess when I say I'm tired, it's that I haven't stopped, and I think sometimes it is important to try to pause and look back and see where you started and where you've arrived. And I never really thought I would, find a career in this industry. I was just like, this is something I like doing. I've kind of found my way into it, and I'm doing a lot of things in the UK now. I'm part of a group advocating for better diversity and representation in this field, in design. Like, I've never, till this year, met another woman of color working in the industry in 10 years, which is really bad. And I think it's also, there's a lot of pressure being like, the person that represents Indian female immigrant video design. You're just like, wow, like, I just want to make work, I don't want to be representative of an entire section of people. So yeah, I think I've lost track of the question. I told you it's going to happen. What was the question? Oh yeah, I think that is inspired.
Have you taken inspiration from any particular event?
I think, no one particular thing comes to mind, but all of these things. I remember when I worked, actually, yeah, like a really big thing that I remember really clearly. I remember when I worked on the opening ceremony, and I was in the stadium during the rehearsals, and everybody was practicing late at night. All the people in the ceremony were actually volunteers, and there's a section of the ceremony called the Industrial Revolution. And there was a whole volunteer team of people playing, musicians as well as ordinary people playing the steel drums. And they would walk into the stadium and you'd kind of hear them rumbling, coming in. It was like a storm coming. And they were playing, and then I found out later that the woman who was leading the drumming, she's a British musician called Dame Evelyn Glenny, and she's deaf. Like, she can't hear. And she was like the lead musician for like this whole section of the set. And she plays barefoot, so she can hear all the vibrations like in her feet. But I remember sitting in the stadium, like in one corner, just on my own, hearing them rehearse this section, and then finding out that she couldn't hear, or I think she has partial hearing. And I remember being really moved, and I'm quite teary now talking about it, actually. It's kind of fantastic to think that, she's a musician, she's a successful musician. She led like over 100 people, like in this big moment, and she did it on her own. So that was really inspiring.
That was beautiful. What was your foundation like?
My foundation was pretty cool. There were 60 of us. Suresh was our
There were 16 of you?
No, 60.
Oh.
Which was quite large for NIT. Had like batches of 30 to 40. We were also the first batch with grading.
Oh. So there was no grading before you?
No, there was no grading. It was all quality.
Oh my god.
But I was taught by like Suresh and Neelam Iyer and all these like giants of like design in India, and I was lucky to work with some of them as a teacher in NID. And foundation was the best thing. Everything that I do now is connected to foundation and also connected to my degree at NID. Not my degree at the NID is like the way they teach. Like, I know some people find it really frustrating. They're like, why do we have to learn like color theory and do like, this color swatches and grayscales and 25 steps? Oh my God, do it without the attitude. Like, it makes like everything I've been able to do, every job I've been able to do, every decision I've been able to make instinctively is because of that training. There's nothing like in the world. Like, I have studied in France, I've studied in London, studied in, like, apparently the best school for postgraduate design in the world. And I still say, like, NID is like, NID Foundation is the best course. I would do it again in a heartbeat. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have a favorite course?
Yeah. EP.
Which one? You like EP?
Yeah. It
What
was,
village did you go to?
we went to Baatein, actually. Not Baatein, Baatein, in Maharashtra. We had kind of like a weird that.
Oh wow, you went to Maharashtra.
Yeah, we didn't go. We went to Maharashtra.
Now we just go to places in Gujarat.
I mean, no, we were the only batch to do it. I think we couldn't find a village in Gujarat to do it for a long enough period. So we actually did really long studies in Ahmedabad. And I still remember, like, the neighborhood I implemented in Ahmedabad. And then we went to Bethlehem for like 3 days or 4 days. We didn't go for the full week.
Okay.
But it's pretty cool. We did some drawings of, like, the Ajanta and Ellora, like, we were there.
Wow.
But at the time, lots of people were unhappy about it because we felt like we weren't getting long enough to study a place. But it was the first time I started drawing people in a space. Like, I do a lot of, like, live drawing in my work, like documentary drawing, trains, and I just love drawing like that. And that EP is where.
EP. That was my worst course. Who do you think? What do you think will be the role of creators in the post-pandemic world? Akhila, are you there? Hey.
Sorry, could you repeat? I'm here.
Yeah, I'll repeat. Can you hear me now? Yes,
Hi.
you're back. Hi. What do you think will be the role of creators in the post-pandemic world?
Oh, wow. I mean, this is a question we've talked about during our bystander anthology, like, sort of calls the collaborators as well. So this is a question that's been on my mind. I think probably post-pandemic, I think we have to be even more creative with medium and storytelling. How we connect to people through a computer where, everybody's, like, fatigued with, like, Zoom, or, like, where internet drops out even though you're in London and it has, really good connection. Like, and I think we'll probably also go back to a slower, non-digital way of making work. I don't really know what it means in terms of sharing it. Like, I'm still from that generation where it's more important to make the work and than to share it. Like, look at my case. I've just been making work for like 15 years, right? In a little bubble. And I've done well at it because I get commissions and I do think there's a value to sharing. I think if you make work just to share it, there's probably no point. So I think it'll probably readdress that balance slightly. People will start making work just for themselves, and I think that's a good thing.
Also, like a mindful approach, just like not just doing it for the sake of doing it or posting it.
Yeah, not just for the sake of posting it. Yeah.
What is the one thing you miss the most about NID? Foundation's already taken. You'll have to come up with a different answer.
Probably basketball.
Basketball. Okay.
Yeah, I used to play a lot of basketball. I was like the only girl. Well, I was the female player of my foundation and all the VC teams that I was on. I used to play till like 3 in the morning. Yeah. I think when I was teaching, some of the boys just didn't believe that I was as good a player as I was. I think
Did you show them?
Yeah, but they didn't like it. I was really
Okay.
lucky when I was a student. I was lucky to be playing with a bunch of boys who were very open to my abilities and my skills. They didn't treat me like a girl. They weren't condescending to me. So yeah.
When are you coming back to teach?
I guess it's like when I'm gonna be back. Um, I haven't been able to because when I was working in a full-time job, I didn't really get that much leave. So I would just come to India to see my family. But now I'm sort of freelance, so I can come back for like a long enough time. I know that Arun and Shrinkla have some ideas and have asked me to help with some things. So yeah, hopefully like as soon as COVID allows, maybe at the end of next year, vaccine pending. Yeah, I think like I said, I used to run Baatein. I used to be part of like the student
Yes,
activity council.
senior. Yes, fingers crossed for you
I
to
used to
come.
run
Thank
film
you.
club.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I used to do so many things in NID. It's just a bit like yeah, I used to live in Samipam apartments and then in Ruby apartments when I was working. I love Ahmedabad. I mean it's changed so much since I was a student. I came back like maybe 4 years ago and I came to meet Shilpa and yeah, I was just bringing some family through India and I was like, we have to go to Ahmedabad. I have to show you the city. Yeah, it was a very different time. I think at the time I was kind of quite restless and but I think I was very lucky to be able to live and work there for like 2 years. Yeah.
Do you think the kind of audience that we have now for design needs to change?
Design in India?
I think so, yeah.
I don't think it needs to change. I think it probably just needs to be different ways of working, different kinds of work need to just be more easily accessible. I don't think
Accessible. Do you think the audience needs to be more accepting of different types of content, first
no,
of all, and no?
I think the audience is. I mean, from where I'm sitting, like because of Instagram, social media, the kind of work people are consuming in India changed massively. And if we look at like the number of backers we had for the anthology, so many were from India. So I think there is an appetite to look at like TV shows and new films that are coming out in India. There is a appetite for new content. So I think it's just about people understanding what making work in that context means. But they're probably the more they see, it's sort of like a cyclical. I don't think it's like
Right.
something that's isolated. And I don't think you can blame audiences for
Yeah.
work, especially
Like you said, the accessibility. If it's there, why wouldn't they watch it? Or yeah.
exactly like it's affordable as well. And
Yes. Right.
I think it's very easy to blame your audience if you feel like your work doesn't succeed, and I don't think that's right. That's my personal opinion.
Okay. Oh, we're almost out of time now. Would you like to say something to all the students in NID? Like
Oh my gosh.
any words of advice?
Um, it'll be hard, but it'll be worth it. I'm really of the opinion NID is one of the best colleges in the world. Like I said, I think it's better than RC. So, and that's a big statement. I think you're also lucky in NID to have so much support from like faculty, technical staff, and also to live in a city where it's affordable for you to like, go out and get help with like fabrication and things like that. I think, when you come to London, it's like a total 180. Everything is so expensive. And even if you find somebody to help you, it's too expensive. And you're just like thinking of NID, you can just go to like the workshop and convince some car. And you're just like, why was I complaining about that? There's nobody to help me in London. Nobody cares. And it's a totally different experience. I think English are quite independent, like being independent. And so you kind of have to figure out everything on your own. Whereas in India, I think if you ask for it, help is there much more easily. So I think that community should be celebrated, not like looked down. It's very, very rare. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. That's what I would tell all the students in NID. I have like a very low tolerance for complaining. Like I think I mean, we have like even if there are problems, like the NID pedagogy is, based on the Bauhaus. There are like some really solid core skills that you learn. Like I can draw a straight vertical line still without a ruler. Like I could just draw it. That's insane. Like,
AD, yes.
And as a filmmaker, I can communicate us through drawing.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So, and I work a lot with animators, and they love working with me. But I feel that I'm able to do that only because of all my friends in animation. So, NID is like, no place is perfect, but everything said and done, NID is pretty good. And like, there's food, like, my parents still talk about eating at like BMW, and you go and get like, in London it's so expensive to get clothes tailored for yourself, like it's unaffordable. Only the really rich can do it. And you can be a college student and get a full wardrobe stitched in fabric that you want. That's insane.
Yeah. That's insane, yeah.
It's like, yeah, so it's just about like understanding that these are all like huge luxuries, and to be grateful for them. That's what I would say.
Okay. Also, just before we wrap up, I have to say, I love your earrings.
Thanks. They're like they're from a place in Australia called Oka. My friend who lives there sent them to me. But Oka on Instagram, very pretty.
Yes.
Say thank you, Varshini. You've been pretty great. Thank you for putting up with my trying to overcomplicate technology this morning.
No, that was great. I think we should be able to do that next time. Maybe not on this platform, but on Zoom or something. Because we love to see that entire presentation you put together.
Yeah.
Thank you, Akhila.
Thank you, Varshini.
And thank you, audience, for listening to us this whole time. And this video will be up on Bhaatiya's IGTV. And you guys should go check her workout. It's damn cool.
Thanks.
And okay, yes, I'll look that up. Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.